on the second day of this international webinar on open source software hands-on training organized by the Department of Physics and IQAC of East Calcutta Girls College. It gives me, of course, great pleasure that Principal Madam Dr. Shukla Hajra, Principal of East Calcutta Girls College, is there with us, without whose presence every program is incomplete. So, welcome, ma'am. And I would also like to welcome Dr. Panchali Mojumdar, IQAC, East Calcutta Girls College. Of course, our eminent guests and speakers of the second day, Mrs. Sanchita Roy, Vice President, Business Intelligence, Omnicom Media Group, India. It's a pleasure to have you with us, ma'am. Thank you for giving your precious time to us. And of course, it goes without saying, another participant and I think a very proactive speaker who was there with us the entire day. On the very first day, Dr. Shubhodip Chakraborty. A warm welcome to him. And without whose presence this webinar, of course, would not be a success, the participants. I welcome all the participants who have patiently stayed with us and who are going to be there with us for the next few days. So on that positive note, I would now like to invite our principal madam, Dr. Shukla Hajra, to please come and say a few words. Madam basically is the foundation of success of all the activities which take place in our college. And she is the guide who guides us through troubled waters. So we are indeed blessed to have you with us, ma'am. Thank you very much. I would like to invite you to address the audience.
Thank you, Monisha. Good morning, everybody. I welcome Dr. Shubhodip Chakraborty, who delivered lecture yesterday, and also again he will deliver lecture on latex today also. And also I again welcome Mrs. Sanchita Roy, Vice President Business Intelligence Group, India, and also all participants who join this webinar. Actually, our teachers are very enthusiastic, they are very hardworking, and they try to first contact their students and complete their syllabus online. And now they are trying to improve themselves, and they spread these chances to others also. And they contacted many good resource persons. So I must say, we can do a SWOT analysis, means strength, weakness, opportunities, and threat of COVID-19. Actually, after COVID-19, we are using so much online teaching learning processes. Our teachers and others, they know something about online teaching, but now they are expert on online teaching and learning and arranging webinar. And also it is good for us that they contact many good resource person in other parts of India and also overseas. So we can get contact good resource person from all over the world, and we enable ourselves and our students, teachers, research scholars to get good training, and after especially on open source software, which are very useful for the future students and research scholars, because when they are going for buying any software, it costs more than 5 lakhs, 10 lakhs, 15 lakhs, etc. So this will help them to do a lot. Not only that, I have seen, I don't know whether it is right or wrong, I have seen that Amazon is planning to hire 1 lakh employees who are very good or very well equipped in these different types of online jobs. So we must say that we are giving, or we are getting the chances for this type of webinar in this COVID period. This is the opportunity of the COVID period, because we know the threat of COVID. We know the threat of COVID-19, and that's why we are taking some precautions. We confined ourselves. We confined our students in the home, and that is and we are, in this way we are combating the threat of COVID-19. But we have some weakness on online teaching and online webinar and all that. Now we get strength of that, and we not only that, I must say about our personal life also. Sometimes, many times we are busy with the birthday party, marriage party, weekend party with our friends and all that. But nowadays, I think that many of our teachers or members or students or anyone or everyone, they are in the home and with their family members. They take the tea with their family members in the evening. And also I must mention that in English, Professor Nilarji Chatterjee, he mentioned that it is a pleasure that I am giving one lecture sitting in my study room within my family. So this is also very important, that we contact those persons who are in the room and they are giving and they are enjoying their family members also, along with their enjoying their teaching. So and also I must mention, there are some innovative practice. Now I am astonished to seeing that our teacher, they are doing different types of innovative practice. They are doing different types of activities when they what they are thinking only when they are confined in the room during COVID period. So they try to get the grievances of the students. They try to get to help the students. They try to extend their help to the affected people during coronavirus and Amphan. So they are doing a lot in their home, to their students, to their friends, to the other affected peoples. So this is the actual gain of COVID-19. I must say that now we are challenging the threat of COVID-19. We have strength enough. We overcome the weakness, and in future we will do in this way with our students and teachers. So this type of webinar, especially on open source software, will help us a lot. Who are taking this, the resource person who are taking this pain to deliver lectures, I must congratulate, I must welcome, and I must give them regards to on behalf of me and my college. And I wish every success of this type of webinar which are doing by our colleagues, teachers, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, ma'am, for your encouraging words. I mean, really, it was a very interesting aspect. You talked about the SWOT analysis. I think that is required now. We need to know our strengths, the threat that we are facing, and the opportunities that will be gained by the webinars that are being conducted. Yes. So thank you once again, ma'am. Without your blessings, nothing would have really worked out. So you are there to constantly inspire, encourage, and give us innovative ideas. We are really thankful to have you with us all the time. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Now I would like to invite Mrs. Sanchita Roy, the first speaker of today. She's the Vice President, as already mentioned, of Business Intelligence Omnicom Media Group India. And today she's going to speak on changes in consumer sentiments in a COVID world. Well, that is a very interesting and relevant topic today. And I know each one of us will be listening and taking home very interesting ideas from this. Over to you, ma'am. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Can someone please start my video, because I think it's been stopped by the host. So I'm not being able to switch on my video.
Can you please check now, ma'am?
Yes, no, yeah, I think it's working now. 1
Yes,
minute.
you're visible to us.
Can you see me?
Yes, ma'am.
Is it visible? Okay.
Yes, you're visible to us.
It's okay. So thank you, Dr. Shukla Hazra, for inviting me to, address this gathering today. Thank you to Dr. Panchali Mujumdar and to Dr. Monisha Sharkar for inviting. It's always a pleasure, to talk to an august gathering like yours, who are responsible for shaping the future of the generations to come. So yes, it's thank you very much, for inviting me to this seminar. And before I start, a quick introduction about myself. So yes, I'm Sanchita Roy, and I head the business intelligence vertical at Omnicom in India. So which basically deals with data analytics, with communications planning and insights, and consumer research. Omnicom, I don't know if you have any idea of the advertising industry, but we are a part of the advertising industry. We're a media agency. What we really do is, we help clients plan for their budget. So all the TV ads that you see, all the newspaper advertisements that you see, we actually tell clients, how to spend that money. So if a client has 100 rupees, we tell the client how to spend that 100 rupees. Should he put that entire money onto television, or should he put that money into a mix of television come digital? So that's the kind of planning and strategy work that we do at Omnicom. It's one of the leading media agencies globally. And in India, it's about now 12 years old in the market, and we handle a lot of blue chip accounts like Volkswagen, Hindustan Unilever, Reckitt Benckiser, Bayersdorf, which is Nivea, to name a few. And during when this whole pandemic broke, what we really did we partnered with YouGov, which is again an online research agency, to understand, what are the consumer sentiments. So how are consumers reacting? I mean, it's a new normal for all of us. I think when the outbreak happened, none of us was prepared. None of us ever knew that, we would see a situation or a world like this. So yes, so it's very important, therefore, to understand, what are consumers going through. And therefore, through this research, once you know what consumers are going through, then, as an agency, we are able to plan better for our advertisers. We can actually tell them, what are the mediums to invest in, what are the things that they should be doing. So that is essentially has been the intent of the research. And without further ado, I think I'll just share my screen and take you through the findings. Yeah, just let me know if you're able to see my screen. Again, host has disabled participant screen sharing. So can you please unlock that for me? Hello?
Yeah.
Yeah, can someone allow me to share my screen?
Yeah, it's allowed.
No, it's still saying it's disabled.
But it's allow participants to share screen. Can you please check?
I just checked it right. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, okay. Sorry for the inconvenience.
No, it's okay. Perfectly okay. No problem at all. So just let me know once you're able to see the screen, and I'll just jump into it. Can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am. We can see.
You can. Okay, so basically this research was done, as I said, to understand the impact of COVID-19 on Indian consumer sentiments. So what we did was we actually wanted to, the entire research has been bucketed into three critical areas. One is, to understand what the sentiments are of consumers. The second bucket is to understand, what is the purchase behavior. So, what are the categories that, consumers are buying into? So how are they spending their money? And of course, because this whole pandemic suddenly, put all of us in a lockdown situation, of course, most of us were holed up at our own homes. So, how does the media habits of these consumers change? So essentially, it is essentially these three buckets that I'm going to talk about a little bit more in detail. And in case you have questions, please stop me, ask questions, or I'm happy to answer them at the end of the session. So whatever works for you all, I'm fine with it. So yes, when you look at these sentiments, it is a watchful Indian. So when you asked people, what is it that they think about the coronavirus, 7 out of 10 Indians said that they were somewhat scared of contracting the virus, and the fear was high amongst females in the age group of 35 to 44. Naturally, I mean, parents, older moms, older women, everyone had that whole fear of, we can contract the virus for ourselves. And, when it came to taking the precautionary measures, I think all of us really, to some extent, took certain precautionary measures so that, people are able to, at least delay or ensure that, they do not contract the virus. So almost like if you look at the graphs on the right, you'll see that when it comes to precautionary measures, there is a high level of prudence amongst consumers. And there was a high adherence to measures like social distancing, improving personal hygiene, wearing of masks. And this especially, could be seen in citizens amongst consumers in tier 1 cities. Naturally, metro cities, tier 1 cities, big towns are always are always the early adopters to technology, are always early adopters to whenever it comes to adopting any kind of precautionary measures. And when we went out in the market and spoke to people, this was really apparent that while 70% of Indians were scared of contracting the virus, most of them were prudent enough to take precautionary measures. And when it comes to understanding or appreciating what the government was doing, 92% felt that the government is handling the COVID-19 pandemic very, very well, and they feel that the government should take steps to ensure that supplies of essentials are on track. Due diligence should be taken on how to quarantine people, and of course and taking strict measures against consumers or people who are violating the protocols. And while people were not in agreement with the nationwide lockdown because of the repercussion it can have on the industry, but almost 70% felt that the lockdown should continue because it was the only way to contain the pandemic. And therefore, when you ask people about what are the measures that the government should take, most of them said that ensuring essential supplies are available to everyone, ensuring that quarantine anyone who has been in contact with a COVID patient, taking stricter actions against people who are violating the protocols. This should be the priority in terms of the steps that the government should take to contain the pandemic. And when you ask consumers about what is in their mind, I mean, as a human race, we always tend to be more empathetic of our fellow human beings. And when we went out and spoke to people, that is exactly what consumers told us, that survival of people who are daily wage earners, what is it that the government can do to help them? What is it that the government and as people we can do to protect them? Not only that, when people were also skeptical that people who do not follow the social distancing norms will also help in spreading the disease. So these were some of the thoughts that were there in the consumer's mind. So one is survival of people who are daily. So how are they going to survive? People who are not following the social distancing norms, they are the ones who are going to aggravate spread of the disease. And India, if it does not, none of the countries, it's not India, but none of the countries worldwide are equipped to handle a pandemic of this nature. So what if there is a large outbreak, what will happen? you know, and then because the economic situation is bad, you know, what will we do, you know, when, if we don't have enough money, if this outbreak continues for long? So these are some of the thoughts which consumers go through in their mind. But at the same time, you know, we are a hopeful lot. So, you know, there are 80% of Indians feel that, you know, we will emerge stronger out of this once the pandemic is over, because, you know, we've now accepted, you know, a lot many more things. The new normal is something that all of us have started living with, and citizens in metros are more hopeful about the resurgence compared to tier 1 cities. And you know, when you ask people what is it that they are looking forward to, you know, when we get back into a normal life, you know, 72% of people said that they're looking forward to going back to work. 50% says that they're looking forward to meeting friends. 39% says that they will probably still go out and eat at a restaurant. I mean, going out eating at a restaurant, shopping in a mall, are things which are people really still skeptical about. But of course, going back to work, meeting friends, connecting with people are something which really people are looking forward to, you know, once the lockdown once we all come out of the lockdown situation. And of course, this brings us to, you know, the second, so that was all about, you know, the consumer sentiments. Yes, there is a pandemic outbreak that has happened. Yes, it is, people are worried about their future, about what is going to happen. But at the same time, it is a hopeful Indians. We are hopeful. We are hopeful that we will emerge stronger from this pandemic than ever before. At the same time, what we also see is, you know, when this whole pandemic outbreak happened, you know, there was a lot of impact on certain business verticals. Especially, you know, there is an impact that we see on personal care and convenience business. So when the government announced a lockdown on 25th March this year, I think all of us were in a frenzy to go and stockpile on things. So there were certain categories where we really saw you know, a surge in spends in certain categories, and certain categories where people were really not spending at all. So what we saw is, you know, it started impacting, you know, across categories, and people were stockpiling. Almost 40% of Indians had stockpiled essentials, so that because no one knew how long is this lockdown going to continue, and people were piling on essentials, on groceries, on sanitizers, on disinfectants. And what we see is that the younger consumers have stockpiled more essentials than their older counterparts. And when you go into each of these particular categories, what we really see is, you know, when it comes to groceries and food, toiletries, so these are the categories where people were really, you know, stockpiling on. So majority of the Indians were spending more on groceries and food. So the way to read the chart is, all these graphs is, you know, so when you see the bar on the bar graph, so 48% at an all India level, 48% of your of consumers were spending more on groceries and food. 28% spent less on groceries and food. 23% was doing the regular, whatever they used to buy. They were not actually going and buying extra. And 2%, you know, they it's like don't know, can't say. They were not bothered about life. It was life as usual for them. But if you see, almost close to 50% of your audiences were stockpiling. So groceries and food, toiletries, which includes personal care products like soap, shampoos, those were the categories where people were stockpiling on. And what we really see is, you know, the pandemic, you know, when it really broke, when the outbreak, while some categories really saw a spike in spending, especially categories like disinfectants, hand sanitizers, but there are categories that really saw a dip in spends, which is, you know, ordering food online. This whole paranoia, or this whole skepticism about, you know, you don't know who's going to deliver your food, you don't know how it is going to get cooked. So what we really see is a drop in ordering food online. So, you know, it's only 54% spent less on, you know, ordering food online. And of course, the other category where we see that consumers were spending less was personal grooming. Now, you're not stepping out. You don't have to go to office. You don't have to go to college. You don't have to go to school. You don't have to. So there was no need to, invest into personal grooming, because people were saving the money that they could, because no one knows that, how long this is going to continue and what the future has in store. So with the entire nation under lockdown, consumer segments they reduced spending on personal grooming products like lipsticks, makeups, because we were not stepping out. Skincare. So these categories really saw a drop in spending. And what we also saw a drop in spending is, specialty and consumer durables. So these consumer durables, so again, you were not stepping out. So where is the need? And malls and everything was shut down. So this whole thing of buying personal apparel, whether it's dresses or shoes, that saw a dip. Electronic gadgets, it did not see a dip, but what it did was people were postponing the purchases. Today, if I have to buy a microwave, I do not need it right now. I'll wait for another 6 months. Or if someone is planning to buy a car, what consumers did was actually, postponed those kind of purchases. So nearly 60% of Indians were in market for personal apparels, which includes clothes, shoes, personal accessories, and a majority of them intended to buy electronics, and approximately 1 out of 4 Indians were looking to buy into the automobile category, but everyone had actually kind of started postponing these purchases. So what we see is, high proportion of potential car buyers have postponed buying plans by more than 6 months. So whenever it's a high investment category where, where it was not a daily essential, you've kind of tended to, postpone purchase of that category. Similarly, we saw a similar impact even on two-wheelers. So what we see is, like, if it's consumers during this period was only spending on essential items, which was grocery, food, personal care items, anything which did not, which really was not necessary at that point in time, was getting pushed for a later date. And what we've also seen is, when you look at the auto industry, after almost zero sales in April 2020, auto manufacturers started partial production in May 20, and they've actually come up with a lot more CSR initiatives, to actually help fight the pandemic in India. So even advertisers and marketers are also doing their bit. So I don't know, I'm sure all of you would have read news. So when the initial days of, when the pandemic outbreak happened, everyone was whether it was Diageo, whether it was L'Oreal India, whether it was Berger Paints, whether it was ITC, everyone was making sanitizers, everyone was making mask and PPE kits and distributing it to the frontline workers. So in their own way, corporate India really came out to help fight the pandemic along with the government. And what we also see is, this whole, anything which is, as I mentioned earlier, anything which is a high value purchase was being pushed or relegated to the next 6 months. So whether it was, even in case of home appliances and same, if someone had a purchase in mind, they were pushing it for the next 6 months. So and when it comes to consumer durables, it's the same thing. 1 minute. Yeah. So that brings us to the second section of the research that we did, which was more to understand, the categories we were spending it. So at Omnicom, we actually have a mix of FMCG and auto clients. So therefore, it was most important for us to understand, within FMCG, which are the categories which are really important and where clients could spend, and also, the categories where it would not be prudent for clients to spend. So, basis this, we could advise our clients to spend their money wisely. And any questions so far? Hello?
Yeah, please continue.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the next, to the last and final section of the research that we had done, which is to understand, the evolving media consumption. The COVID pandemic, what it really put all of us as humans is, in a very unnatural situation, something that none of us has ever seen earlier. And I think the initial days was more about coming to terms with it and grappling this whole thing. We've never done work from home, but today, as the principal madam rightly said, we all are so conversant with technology. Today we can take online classes, we can do meetings, we can do everything virtually. I mean, everything has changed. So while the pandemic has its own share of ups and downs, it as to us, it has really taught us a lot of things. And when you talk to consumers, when you try to understand how they are spending their time, you also see a huge shift in the way the media consumption has happened. So the first thing that we asked people is, because people are stuck at home, what is it that they are doing, what is it that they are doing to keep themselves busy. So I think 3 out of 4 Indians, so almost 75% of the people are spending more time doing household activities and household chores. And what we see is there is this huge spurt in time spent on social media, on watching TV. So when you ask people on what are the key activities that they are engaging with, what they really told us was 76% are spending more on social activities. 67% of our audience at an all India level are spending more time on social media. 64% watching more TV. 57% reconnecting with friends. 52% listening to more music. And we also have a huge amount of people who's also sleeping more. So yes, people were doing multiple things to keep themselves engaged. And if you see the social media posts, if you see the Instagram posts, I mean, you all the latent hidden talents that people had were coming to the forefront. So you see people indulging in trying out new dishes. You see people getting into a long forgotten hobby. So people were doing different things to cope with this unusual situation. Not only that, they were trying to keep themselves engaged, be happy, be engaged, be happy with with the current situation that has been thrown on them. And so when it comes to understanding what are the media, how is the media consumption changing, what we really see that people are spending more time watching TV, because the whole day so at my home, I mean, I see my husband getting in the morning, watching the news on TV. So earlier, the morning prime morning was never a prime time in our language. But now, with people being at home, everyone has started watching TV, wanting to understand what is happening, what are the steps that the government is taking. So we really see a spurt in TV viewership. Not only that, there is this whole the fact that people were watching TV, and Doordarshan brought back all the classics that we have grown up watching. Is testimony to the fact that more time on the entertainment genre. So what we see is time spent watching TV is almost has gone up. It's almost 4 hours 16 minutes. So it's almost a 13% increase in time spent watching TV. So the numbers that you see at the bottom of this chart is basically a research that has been conducted by BART, which is the Broadcast Audience Research Council for India. So all the TV, so it's a government body that actually measures TV ratings, and this research has been done in partnership with Nielsen, which is again one of the leading research agencies worldwide. So and when we look at people are spending more time on TV, and when you look at what are the genres where people are spending more time, so it sees that your GECs, which is your general entertainment channel, so all your Star Plus, your Z, your Colors of the World, so that has seen a 44% increase in channel share. There's a 26% increase in movie channels, 15% increase in viewership on news channels, and 8% increase in viewership of kids channels. Not only that, what we also see is even advertisers have started spending more, especially essential products. So we saw a spurt in advertising by Reckitt Benckiser because of Dettol, because of Lysol, because of Harpic. We saw a spurt in advertising by Savlon, by ITC. So companies which has products that were relevant to the consumers during this period, we've seen those advertisers increasing their spends on TV. And when you look at it, when it comes to time spent, so 82% of time spent on movies and 57. So even OTT platforms. I mean, a lot of us during this pandemic has actually shifted our viewership or tried to get our daily dose of entertainment from the OTT platforms. So Netflix actually got some 15.8 million subscribers post March, and majority of them has come from the Asia Pacific region. Whether it's Amazon Prime, they added almost 25% paid subscriptions. So most of the OTT players, whether it's Amazon, whether Amazon Prime, whether it's Netflix, whether it's something which is homegrown like a Hotstar or even a Voot or a Sony Live, everyone has added to their paid subscription base, which means OTT consumption has been on the rise. So almost 56% of our audiences across India has been spending more time on the OTT platforms. And what are they watching on the OTT platforms? It's essentially movies and originals. So 82% of them are spending time watching movies on OTT platforms. 50%, 57% of them are spending time watching originals on OTT platforms. And both these put together is what has driven the growth for OTT in India. And what we also see is this huge times that is being spent on social networking, because that's your way to connect. Today, you have so many apps that has come up in the last couple of months. So right from House Party to Zoom to Microsoft Teams, name it, and all of us have those applications on our phone today, because today all of us are now virtually connected to our friends, to our families, to our relatives. So what we've seen is there is this huge time that is being spent on the social media, whether it's Facebook or whether it's Instagram, and the search that we see is primarily driven by the smartphone penetration. Low data cost, accessible smartphone penetration in India has actually led to this whole revolution of internet penetration in the country. And especially during the lockdown, we've seen almost 3 hours 50 minutes is spent per day on the smartphone, which is almost 14% increase as compared to a pre-COVID time. And 80% of that time is spent on chat and voice messages, so which is almost a 15% increase on time spent on social networking. And of course, gaming has also become a huge way to keep people engaged. So we see that at an all India level, almost 55% of our audiences says that they're spending more time on Facebook, 38% says that they are spending more time on Instagram, and almost 70% is spending more time on YouTube. So yes, social networking and digital has actually helped people in keeping themselves engaged during this outbreak period. And not only that, what we also see is this whole change, shift to radio and music. So music streaming apps like a Savan or a Ghana or a Spotify, we also see that even they have seen consumers are spending more time on music streaming apps, or playing music, so to drive away all the quarantine blues that people are going through. We also see a lot of time that is being spent on radio. But when it comes to radio, it is still largely a phenomena of older audiences. The younger audiences are more into music streaming apps, into streaming music online. So whether it's Apple Music, whether it's Ghana, whether it's Savan, whether it's the MX player, or whether it's Spotify. But the older audiences or the older consumers continues to, still listen to radio, still listen to those still listen to those age-old songs, or those time bands that really plays those retro kind of music. So we've seen that shift also happening. And so that brings us to the third section that we covered, which is to understand how consumer shifts has happened. So when we advised our clients, a lot of the money, we told them that it is prudent to spend money on news channels. It is prudent to spend money on OTT platforms and not so much on the GCs, because this is also during the lockdown period, none of the Hindi entertainment channels had original content. And that is why we see this shift happening on OTT platforms, because that is newer content that consumers had access to. And therefore we could advise our clients to spend their money wisely. So that brings us to the last section. When you see the world, I mean, it's a new normal for all of us, and how have brands coped with it? So brands are also trying to adapt to the new normal. And the key thing, or the most important thing that one should remember here, that today, if you have to succeed today as a brand, if you want to be in the consumer's consideration set, or if you want to be the consumer's most preferred brand, you also need to adapt to the new normal. You also need to understand where the consumer shifts are happening. You also need to understand you also need to understand and be empathetic towards consumer requirements. So what we've seen is, we've tried to see, what are the things. So how can brands succeed, in a time like this, when everything around you is changing? So one is, educate consumers with the right information, say the right message, and case in point being Reckitt Kaiser. Their whole hashtag disinfect to protect, was aimed at telling or educating consumers how consumers on why it is so important to keep surfaces clean and disinfect surface, so as to help break the chain of infection. So educating with the right information is point number one. It's one of the most critical things that brand should do during times like this. The second thing is, be a corporate, from a corporate image, become a human, be empathetic, understand what consumers are going through, understand the shifts that is happening and how consumers are trying to change to it. Because only when you come across as a human brand, only then will consumers take to you. So Hindustan Unilever, the largest advertiser in the country, in collaboration with UNICEF, they launched a campaign called hashtag Break the Chain. So which talked about three key things: social distancing, hand washing, and generosity. So it actually tells you that, as a brand, this is a brand that cares for me. This is a brand that is thinking about me, that has there to make money. The brand is out there to think about me and do things that will benefit me in the long run. Being genuine and empathetic, brands need to do that. And that is, Ariel's most successful campaign of sharing the load. It's a situation when all of us were locked down. I think the situation demanded that everyone in the house came to share the load of the household chores and not leave it to only the women folk. The man and the women had equal responsibility to share the household chores. And that's what Ariel's campaign spoke about, when they came with hashtag share the load campaign. The second is, keeping consumers engaged, because if you are not engaging with your consumers, your brand will never be top of mind. So Nivea's the latest campaign which they launched during the lockdown period is all about hashtag many ways to care. So it's a digital first campaign saying, asking people to, what are the different ways in which they could stay at home and still have fun with their kids. So, you ask people, you ask consumers to share their fun moments, how they are engaging, their ideas of how they are engaging or spending time with their kids. And it was a campaign that was really successful and really went viral. Of course, what times like this also needs is, to be agile, to be to be able to keep up with times. So, today, when you see the pandemic breaking out, I think, a lot of advertisers, what it required was agility in media planning. People were watching news, people were not watching Hindi entertainment channels because it didn't have new content. So, being agile enough to change your media plan, being agile enough to change your strategy, that is something that that was the need of the hour. And people and brands which have been able to deliver on that has been able to strike a chord. And it's also, the other thing that we've seen, almost all big advertisers, everyone came up with this whole message of solidarity, of, standing by people, standing by the government during these trying times. So, being agile, being able to adapt to changing times is something which is very critical, and brands who are able to travel that journey will always be successful. And finally, influencers and your social media strategy. Today, it is not about, today you have people are posting on their Instagram. So influencers are no longer limited to Bollywood today. You have homegrown influencers, you have macro influencers who could be the girl next door. So, how can we use influencers? How can we use them in a better way so that they are able to, put forward the message of social distancing? How can they put forward the message of using hand washing, of using sanitizers? So using influencers is a very critical pillar, in a marketing strategy. And Reebok did that, with home workout videos. People were at home, there were no exercise. So Reebok really cashed in on this situation, and they did home workout videos with Katrina Kaif, and then you had Detail's hand wash challenge. You had Ritesh Deshmukh and Philip, coming together to do this whole trimming at home because your salons were open, people who couldn't go out for a haircut. So, understanding the consumer needs, identifying the influencer, and then getting the influencer to influence consumer behavior. Brands are able to latch onto that, to activate that. That is again one of the big ways in which brands could still stay relevant within their consumer set. So yes, so that brings me to the end of the section. And this is about, I've spoken about Omnicom and I've spoken about YouGov. And so this research, a little bit more on the research. So it's basically, it's a pre-designed question that was administered, using OMG Connect, which is our online panel in collaboration with YouGov that we have. We conducted the research in 10 markets, which is a mix of metros and tier 1 cities. And we had a sample size of 30 spread across these research centers. And we spoke to 25 plus male and female audiences, salaried businessmen, housewives, so that we get a sense on, what the consumer sentiments are. So yes, that brings me to the end of the session. Any questions? I'll be happy to take them. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Sanchita. Just One moment, Monisha Dev will be with us shortly. Just one moment. So there is a question by Ms. Ruchika Gupta in the chat box. If you can see it.
Yeah. So this is an online panel. So what we do is we've said it is 25 plus male and female. NCCS AB, which is NCCS is basically it's a socio-economic classification factor, and we had reached out to those certain markets. So basically, when you say it is 92% of Indians, it is within the 300 set of audiences that we are researching. We use that number and then extrapolate it to get a sense on, you know, what is it that majority of consumers in the markets are saying. Explain the ways evolving media consumption during COVID is or will impact the younger. See, it is the way the outbreak has actually impacted younger audiences. So A is it is people are holed up. So this whole OTT, this whole social networking, and this whole increase in time spent on digital, on OTT platforms is mostly led by, if you see the graphs, is mostly led by the younger audiences. So it has started its impact. I mean, it's not that it is going to impact. We are in a situation where we've seen these, and these are current. These are, I think, the report was done in the first week of April, so which is immediately after the outbreak, the pandemic outbreak happened. We actually went out in the market to understand. So this is as recent as last month, and yeah, so it has already impacted, and going forward, it is going to have deeper impacts in the way consumers consume media. Any other questions?
Hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are. Thank you.
Thank you, madam. It was really very interesting and a very well-researched topic that you presented today. And I mean, the way you completely took us on a consumer choices that are taking place and the consumer behavior which is changing because of the pandemic. So, how we are now more interested in the essentials rather than our frivolous choices which were there, and then the interests which are more now related to the social media, to the virtual world, and of course, how our priorities are changing. You have made it very clear and very comprehensive. I mean, it was really very, very interesting to see the trajectory of the change which is taking place in our society. So we really enjoyed your talk, madam. And of course, very important, the aspects which you talked about at the end, when you mentioned that how we are to adapt ourselves to the new normal and how the influences can be of macro as well as micro level. That is what is very interesting. So thank you very much. And I think there are participants who have listened avidly to your lecture and would now like to question you on your presentation. So over to Shebunti. Shebunti, can you please take up the question?
I'm more than happy. If people have questions, you know, you can always write to me at my personal ID, or you know, and I'm more than happy to answer and connect with people, and you know, answer any queries that they might have.
Monisha, we have already.
Thank you, ma'am. I mean, we really enjoyed the talk. It was quite a refreshing change. So now I would request Shebunti to please take up the questions.
Monisha, we have already taken up the questions. Monisha, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, we have already taken up the questions.
Yeah. So, if no one has any questions, then so yeah, I'll just end the session. And thank you so much once again for inviting me, to talk to this gathering. As I mentioned earlier, it's always a pleasure to talk to you, people like you, who are responsible for shaping the future of our country. And so, thank you for whatever you guys do. And yeah, it's been a pleasure interacting and knowing you all. Yeah.
Yeah, Monisha
So if there's nothing, should I just log off?
Thank you, Sanchita we were very glad to have you with us. So Monisha you there? Monisha
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So we have already addressed the question answer session.
Okay.
So thank you everyone once again.
Yes, and it was really a pleasure and a privilege to have you with us. Thank you, madam.
Thank you. Thank you.
So we now take a short break, and I think it is very interesting that most of the participants have requested not to prolong the interval. That tells about the involvement and the interest which this webinar has generated. So going with the tide, we will call a very short break of 5 minutes. And then we will ask all the participants to come back once more so that we have Dr. Shubhadeep Chakraborty with us. And I hope that 5 minutes is enough, because according to the popular demand, it was the resource person who was supposed to be given more time. That tells us that the webinar is already a success. And I would like to congratulate Dr. Shebunti Pal and Orpita Das at this point, and request all the participants to join us again after 5 minutes for the next technical session. Thank you.
Thank you, Monisha